Employers are going to need to have a level of trust that they have never had in their team members before.
Hello and welcome to Meet the Coach. I'm your host, Carla, Egan, and our theme today is the younger generation and the workplace. My guest today is Elizabeth Houghton from Sutton Full Potential. Now, Elizabeth is a career strategist and she works with those under the age of 35. She offers job search mentoring, assists in career transitions, hosts her own podcast, and holds qualifications in NLP coaching, industrial relations, and human resources management. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Oh, hi. Thanks ever so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, our theme today is the younger generation. Now, before we jump into those generations and define what they are, I'd like to know what the catalyst was for you building your career and your business around this younger generation.
Oh, it was very much my journey. So I guess I did everything right from a very young age. I went to school, got good grades, even though I was told I wasn't going to. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it. I have dyslexia. So I was told from a really young age that I was actually not going to amount to anything, wasn't going to achieve anything. I had a group of really supportive teachers who knew just how to build me up. They didn't. They said all the wrong things. But I did have a few that were really my advocates. And through that, I kind of just started to do things to prove everyone else wrong. So studied really hard, got good grades, went to uni, got the job straight out of uni doing what it was I studied at uni. But I never took the time to sit back and say, is this making me happy? Is this what I want to be doing? Or am I just doing this to prove to everyone who's told me I can't do it? And the reality of the situation was that I was just doing something, working in human resource management, because it was what I was thought I should do to prove everyone wrong who told me I couldn't do these things. And I never really, through my journey of, higher education, sat down and kind of went, what is it I want to do? What is going to bring me joy every day? We spend a lot of time at work, and I personally feel, and I now know because I experience it, that you can actually love what you do every day. There is that corny quote of love what you do every day, you never work a day in your life, which loads of people just brush off, but it is the truth. And I feel for young people, there's all of this pressure around them. You have your parents' expectations around what you should do. And that comes from love, right? Like they just want you to have a better life than what they had. They want you to have an easier life than what they had. But sometimes the pressure you feel from that isn't great, and it actually stops you from listening to your own intuition and following your own dreams. We have, unfortunately, an education system that is very much geared to academic and going to university and getting the right points and ending up in grad roles. We don't necessarily have an education system that supports people who want to do something slightly different with their lives. So young people have all this pressure. They come out and then they try and get jobs. But who is sitting down having conversations with them around what jobs are actually available? I know, unfortunately, schools still very much talk about the very traditional roles of, you like science, we'll go and study to be a doctor. You like maths, we'll go and be an accountant. And that's great for some people, but it's not great for everyone. In my kind of me focusing on the younger generation, so school leavers to 35 is really where I focus, and help and support is around creating space for young people to sit back in an environment where it is complete no judgment to work out what it is that is going to bring them joy in their lives every single day. Because going to work to do something that you dislike or hate or doesn't bring you joy takes a huge toll on us eventually. So if we can work together as a society, or just me as my coach, with younger generation to get them to a point where, in their mid-20s, they're on the right path. They kind of know what they want to do. They know what they like. They know what they don't like. They know what's going to bring them happiness, instead of pushing them into roles that there's this mass misalignment and they're unhappy. what impact is that going to have on mental health, society as a whole, and people just having happier and more fulfilled lives? So that's how I ended up with that. Under 35, let's fix it now. Let's not fix it in our 40s and 50s, right? Like, let's fix it early on, because lots of people in their 40s and 50s do sit back and go, oh, don't like what I'm doing. Let's try something else. So let's fix it before we get to our 40s.
This is such an important conversation to be having right now. And so I was delighted to be interviewing you. Well, let's define what this younger generation is and what makes them different, because there's a lot of misconceptions in the workplace with employers. So can you just define what the generations that you work with and what makes them different, Elizabeth?
Oh, so under 35, so you've got millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, that fit in that age bracket, who are now in the workplace. And there's so many misconceptions. So millennials, and I fall into the upper age bracket of millennials, and we're lazy, we're job hoppers. We want everything now, we don't work hard. They're the kind of things that people think about us. But that's not true. And it's the same for the younger generation. Stuck to their mobile phones, just want to make money on YouTube. And there's just this running theme between those three generations, that we don't work as hard, that we are not as committed as people who have come through the ranks before us, that we do want things now. And I'm not going to say that's not true. We do want things now, but we do know what it is to work hard and put in the hard yards. But at the same time, we are going into a very different work environment. No matter which industry we work in, we are going into a very different environment to those who have come before us. We're not going to have jobs for life. We're probably going to have redundancies more than any other type of generation that have come before us, right? So I've worked with people who are in their late 20s, and they've been made redundant for like every 3 years through their career to date. That didn't happen. Our parents didn't experience that. Our grandparents didn't experience that. So there is that difference as well, of although we are different in terms of how the environment we've grown up in is different, but we're also going into a different work environment. And then if we think of our real young generation right now, who are just entering the workplace, they have gone through their final years of education, may that be at high school or university, in the middle of a global pandemic. And they are coming out in the middle of a global pandemic. No one has experienced that. No one has been through that. But yet, the people who are interviewing them, the people who are saying, yes, they can have this job, or no, they can't have this job, are approaching those conversations and are having the expectations that they've always had. But it's a completely different environment. It needs to be different. And the way people are coming out of school right now is different. They are going into an environment where actually their first job, they might be onboarded remotely. They might never go into an office for a really long time. They might never physically meet their colleagues. And they're going into work environments like that. But their managers have never led people who have never been in an office environment before. And that's hugely different.
There's some real significant shifts. I mean, the traditional employee model that you and I know, and many people know, the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 model is under threat, really, and it's being challenged by this younger generation, you know, notwithstanding the global pandemic. What can employers expect in the next 5 to 10 years, Elizabeth, from what this younger generation wants in the workplace?
Oh, that's a tough one. 5 to 10 years is a tough one. There's a requirement for flexibility. Set hours, I personally feel, is going to be a thing of the past. 9 till 5 is gone. We've got a generation, in my generation, we have doggy daycare. We send our dogs to daycare over our, like, I'm sure we send our children to daycare as well, but we have a generation of people who are younger, who still have the same ties and the commitments of, okay, well, doggy daycare opens and shuts. And people want to be at home with their pets, or they want to be able to take their pets to the office. They don't want to not have that environment where they're working. So 9 to 5 is over. I believe people want a huge amount of flexibility in how they work. People want to work when it is best for them. Now, that doesn't mean they don't work and they're lazy, but it means they've worked out when is the best time for them to work. Like, we have night owls, we have early morning people, or you have people like, I love 9 till 5, like, not that rigid structure, but I'm not going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start working, and I'm not going to be working at 10 o'clock at night. I like working in daytime hours. But with that, you pop off to the gym when they're open, and you go and get coffee with friends. And there's just this, employers are going to need to have a level of trust that they have never had in their team members before, because there's going to be working from home. People aren't going to be connected on Teams or Slack or whatever chat function people have in the workplace between set hours. People are going to drop in and drop out, and the requirement to lead is going to need to be based on output, not physical hours of activity.
Well said. I'm seeing that shift. I live along the surf coast of Victoria in Australia, and I know people want to go out in the surf when the surf's up, and happy to work back late at night to get the job done. So yeah, it is a real trend with people wanting to have that work-life integration. It's not really a balance now, it's integration, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't say balance, because I don't actually think there's such thing as a work-life balance. We just have life, right? We are a whole person. We don't have a work us and a home us. We are one person, and our lives are messy and they are complicated. But we have all of these different things to do, right? So we have our health and wellness to look after. We have work, right? Work is an important part, whatever work may look like for you. We all need money. It's what makes the world go round. So let's not overestimate that. But there's now this growing desire to ensure work fits with someone's core values, what they want out of life, their lifestyle. So instead of fitting what we used to class as home around work, it's now that need to kind of fit work around home and work around what works for us, instead of employers saying, hey, this is it. This is the blank sheet of paper. These are your lines. It's now more of a negotiation of, you know what? On a Monday, I want to get up and I'm going to go swimming in the sea. So I'm not going to start work until 9:30. But I'm cool to work past that, like past 5. I will work the hours. And it's having those conversations. And it's maybe, you know what, on a Wednesday, I want to go have coffee and breakfast with my girlfriends in the morning. I'm not going to be at my desk until 10, but I'm going to work till 7 or 8 at night to get something done. And it's starting to have those conversations and having leaders who actually know how to lead in that environment and know how to measure effectiveness, because effectiveness is no longer how many hours you're at your desk. It is around what it is you manage to achieve and the value you manage to add to the role in which you're doing. Are you adding the right amount of value? It needs to not matter at what hours of the day that value is added.
Yeah, fantastic. And, for the employers that are listening, business owners, this is an important message, because this younger generation are just getting bigger and bigger, and they're only just entering the workforce, as you say. Now, let's just change gears for a moment. I would like to talk about your role in helping people get jobs and finding their ideal career pathway. Now, the interview is a really important process, and there's so many things to consider and to prepare for. So what's some tips that you'd like to share for the younger generation that are looking to get hired during the global pandemic?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and it is different right now to what it was 2 years ago and what it may be in 4 years' time. So, interview tips: use LinkedIn, understand who's interviewing you before you step into that interview room. If you can build know, like, trust, and familiarity with the person you are going to walk into the boardroom and shake hands with, if we're allowed to shake hands, depending on where you are in the world, that is going to put you in good stead. So find out, what are they talking about from a professional perspective? What is it that interests them? If they are producing content on LinkedIn, engage in that content, say something that adds value, and get to know them in a social setting. Like, we're the generations that are great at using social media. Use it to your advantage. Use it to get to know and get to understand the people you are going to meet with before you turn up. Make sure you actually have researched the business. I know it's not even in current times. I think this has been a running theme for everyone looking for a job across time, of you just apply for everything that's going, because you want a job, you need a job. So you apply for everything, but you don't necessarily do the research before you apply to find out what that organization is about, what their values are about, what they stand for. I recommend you do that before you apply, but if you haven't and you've landed an interview, do your research. Find out what it is that is important to that organization. What do they stand for? What are they trying to achieve? And does that align to you? So when you go into that interview and you get to the end of the interview and the interviewer asks you that dreaded question, do you have any questions for us? And you don't want to just whittle off the standard ones of, well, what's the salary? When are you looking to start us? And how long is it going to be until I hear back? Do your research on the business so you can ask something of value that is actually going to help you understand, do you want to work for this business? Do you want to work for that hiring manager? Because sometimes it's not always about, do you want to work for the business? Sometimes it is actually about, do you want to work for the person that is going to be leading you at this time in your career? And interviews are a two-way street. So I know we go into interviews with a bag of nerves sometimes, thinking, oh my God, they're going to judge us, they're going to make decisions. And they are, right? Like that's the purpose of an interview. They're going to get to know us and they're going to make decisions about us. And through that, there is judgment. But it's your opportunity to assess them. Do you want to work for them? And if you don't, that is okay. If you walk out of an interview and you're like, you know what? That is not the leader for me. That is not the business for me. That is okay. You can do that. So research the business, get to know, if you can, through LinkedIn, a little bit about the people who are going to be interviewing you. Come up with your questions. Know what it is you want to ask the business or the person interviewing you. What is it you need to know to ensure that this is the right move for you? With that, you can take notes into an interview. It is okay. If you have pre-planned questions and you know the second you sit in that interview, those questions are going to go out of your head. It happens. Take a notebook in with you. It is okay to do that. And if an interviewer asks you a question you don't understand or you didn't quite hear right, ask them to clarify. Now, don't ask them to repeat every question they ask you, but if there is a few, it is completely okay to ask them to repeat the question or ask them a follow-up question to try and understand it better. And if your nerves are getting the better of you, just take a sit back in your chair a little bit, take one really deep breath and start again, because that will give your body and your mind a chance just to calm down a little bit and reset your nerves so you can answer the questions with confidence and with ease.
Sensational tips, and not just for the younger generation. I think anyone that's looking to get re-employed or make a career transition would benefit from those strategies. So thank you so much for sharing them. Now, you in your market, being online and having an online presence is so important to attract the type of people that you want to work with. So let me ask you, Elizabeth, what does joining the coaching directory mean to you and your business?
More visibility, obviously. I've always had my whole business online. I've never operated it in any other way. I don't have a set office where people come and see me. I will actually meet clients in different times at coffee shops, or it's over Zoom. So actually having a different presence. Right now, my presence is on social media through my own channels. So it's my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook profile, my Instagram profile, and being part of the coaching directory just puts me in a place with lots of other coaches. There's this community that goes alongside it as well. Coaches like talking to coaches. And it just puts me in a different spotlight of people don't necessarily have to be like, oh, I know Elizabeth. They're going to come across me in a different way. And that is huge. It just raises visibility of my business and what it is I am achieving for young people who are entering the workplace.
Wonderful. And it's wonderful to have you on board as well. So this brings us to the end of our interview. And Elizabeth, I wanted to say thank you so much for your generosity in sharing your tips and your experience, and for shining a light on this younger generation who are the future of our workforce, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to start.
Oh, I was going to say, can I offer one more tip? But go on.
Yeah, I'll just Zoe, we're gonna have to redo this again. So this brings us to the end of our interview. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for your generosity and in also sharing your tips around how to navigate a career transition, but also how to get ahead in a global pandemic if you're wanting to get back into the workforce or you're entering the workforce for the first time.
Yeah, thank you. And I do just have one more tip for our younger generation, because I was just reminded of something I spoke about recently, which was ageism in the workplace. And there is this misconception that it's really just focused towards the older generation in the workplace. Actually, young people struggle with ageism too. So if you are a recent grad or you are someone with a short amount of time in the workplace and you're applying for jobs that are a little bit more senior, and you're kind of getting there, no, well, you don't have 5 years work experience and you don't have 10 years work experience. Sadly, all entry roles seem to ask for 5 years plus experience, which is impossible. Or when you're answering questions, focus on your capability and your skills. Provide evidence of when you have done those things. So if someone does bring up your age, they are not supposed to, but it can happen. Refocus the conversation back to, you are capable of doing X, Y, and Z because. So if they're asking about a specific skill that the job needs, highlight when you've done it before, provide examples, and keep pulling that conversation actually back to your core capability instead of your age.
Thank you so much. And there you have it. Elizabeth Houghton from Sutton Full Potential, a real career strategist. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I really appreciate the level of engagement and the level of participation that you've brought to this interview. I really appreciate your time today.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's our pleasure. And thank you to our audience who are watching and listening Meet the Coach. If you like our show, please rate and review us. And we look forward to meeting you and seeing you on our next episode. I'm Carla Egan, the host and the founder of the Coaching Directory, where we help you connect to your ideal coach.